Welcome to the House of Truth. Today we're continuing our series on the patriarchs. Last week we looked at the sons of Abraham, which among other things helped us to find some more of the players in the Middle East and these Middle East prophecies in the Word of God. But also helped us in so many ways. There was so much in there that was just of practical value to us today. That spoke about us in so many ways, and in the end, but to do so, we had to skip over about Lot and Sodom, and we said we'd circle back, and today we're going to circle back and talk about Lot and Sodom. Of course, the player we looked at last week was Ishmael. Now we're going to continue on. We're going to continue on here in Genesis 18, verse 16 through 22, and we read the following. And the men rose up from there and looked towards Sodom, and Abraham with them to bring them on the way. And the Lord shall hide from Abraham the thing which I do. Seeing Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. For I know him that will command his children, his household after him, they shall keep the way of the Lord to do justice and judgment, that the Lord may bring upon Abraham that which is spoken of him. And the Lord said, because the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grievous, I'll go down now and see where they have done altogether according to the cry of it, which is coming to me, and if not, I will know. And the men turned their faces from there and went towards Sodom. But Abraham stood yet before the Lord. Okay, so last week we got a little bit of overlap here. Last week they came to Abraham and arranged. Sarah had not been told yet she was gonna have a child, and faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. And so, but they knew how the Lord here, just plain says the Lord, the elect from Adonai was one of these three men, knew how she was, made sure he said it again to Abraham where she could hear that she'd be eavesdropping from the tent, which she was. But that was kind of a pit stop to their main business. And this is actually their main business. And they're going from, Abraham was on the way to Sodom to take care of that situation that's there. We'll look at that. Now we're not going to repeat ourselves again about these things. But the main thing that we will know about Abraham here is the Lord's not going to hide something from him. It's one of the prophets, one of the writings of the prophets, it says, God does nothing on the earth unless he first tells his prophets. And Abraham, we were told is a prophet himself. He himself is a prophet. Why? Because he gives the message of the Lord. So the Lord tells him things as here. So the Lord is telling him what he's going to do, and he tells him about Sodom and Gomorrah, and that their sin's very grievous. Now this is, look on this and think about this. I will go down and see if they've done it all together according to the cry, which is, if not, I will know. Well, didn't the Lord know? Well, as we'll see, the Lord himself doesn't go down, okay? He actually already knows the answer to this. But confirmation of two or three of a couple of witnesses. Remember, no one can be put to death under God's law without two witnesses, okay? So he's going to send these other two that came with him to be two witnesses. So it's really the ideal to confirm this message, to confirm this cry. And we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about what this cry. The cry is great. It's sort of twofold, and their sin is very grievous. We're going to look at what that grievous sin is, that exceedingly heavy sin that he's come to deal with. And now the other two men have went down to be those witnesses. But Abraham is still there. The Lord is not going there. He doesn't have to go down. Again, no one can only put to death under God's law except for two witnesses, at least two or three witnesses. And they're going to have, they have another mission as well, which we shall see. Now we continue on in Genesis 18, verse 23 through 20, and we read Abraham's response to this. And Abraham drew near and said, will you also destroy the righteous with the wicked? Peradventure there be 50 righteous within the city. Will you also destroy and spare and not spare the place of the 50 righteous that are therein? Far that be far from you to do after this manner, to slay the righteous of the wicked, and that the righteous be as the wicked. That be far from you. Shall not the judge of all the earth do right? And the Lord said, I will, if I find in Sodom 50 righteous in the city, I will spare all the place for their sakes. And Abraham answered and said, behold, now I've taken upon me to speak in the Lord, which am but dust and ashes. Peradventure there shall lack 5 of the 50 righteous. We destroy all the city for the lack of 5? He said, if I find there 40 and 5, I will not destroy it. So what we see here, well, we see Abraham, first of all, reflecting the very character of God. Abraham has he knows they're exceedingly wicked, except, of course, one thought's running through his mind is Lot, and we'll get that a little bit more in a moment. But he's interceding. He takes no destruction in the pleasure. He takes no pleasure in the destruction of the wicked. And of course, the thought here, what we're going to talk about now, is Lot. Lot. We saw him was called righteous Lot last time, or time before last. Okay, he's the righteous. There's at least Lot. Abraham thinks, apparently he thinks there's probably more than just Lot, but there's at least Lot, and he doesn't want Lot. And the question here is, will God take collateral damage? And the answer here, the answer God's given him here is no. I mean, look at this. This people. We don't know. There wasn't like a census exactly, but this area we're talking about, it easily had 100,000 people in it. Okay, and say 50,000. He wouldn't be willing to kill one. He would spare 1,000 wicked people, or 99 wicked people, to keep one righteous person from being killed in judgment from him. He's the judge of all the earth. He's not going to treat the wicked like the righteous. He just does not take collateral. That's what Abraham's asking. Do you take collateral damage? People do. And of course, in Vietnam, there was a general that said, it was quoted as saying, "Kill them all and let God sort them out." But he didn't originate that saying. Pope Innocent did during the Crusade. They went to Jerusalem and they were the Muslims that were fighting against, and kind of hold themselves up in there. There were also like holy sites and stuff, and there were people and there were people that were under the Pope's jurisdiction who were there inside the city. And people said, "Hey, what are we going to do if we attack the city? And destroy it? We're going to kill our people along with the enemy." And the Pope Innocent's response was kill them all and let God sort it out. But notice God, Yeshua, the Lord here does not have that mentality. He as we saw when we talked about the day of escape, is able to deliver the righteous before destroying the wicked. But until then, he will spare the wicked to keep the righteous from being destroyed in judgment. He won't just kill them all and I'll sort them out later type mentality. Now we continue on here in Genesis 18, 29 through 33, and we read the following. And he spoke unto him yet again and said, peradventure there be found 40 there. He said, I will not do it for 40's sake. He said to him, oh, let the Lord be angry, and I will speak. Peradventure there be 30 found there. And he said, I will not do it if I find 30 there. He said, behold, now I've taken to me to speak to the Lord. Peradventure there should be found 20 found there. He said, I will not destroy it for 20's sake. He said, not let the Lord be angered. I'll speak yet this once. Peradventure 10 be found there. He said, I will not destroy it for 10's sake. And the Lord went his way as soon as he left communion with Abraham, and Abraham returned to his place. Okay, so notice Abraham stops at 10. Remember, Lot had herdsmen, remember? So he knows there's Lot, his wife. Perhaps he knows about Lot's family, how many there is. But he had those other people in his camp who were also doing right when they parted ways, that were doing right. And Lot have been worshiping God, teaching, having people in his camp worship God. And it's obvious Abraham thinks there's at least 10 righteous people here. He doesn't think there's any reason to go any further than 10. And, we'll see. We'll see in a moment. How valid that was, but apparently he didn't think there's any reason to go below 10. He thinks surely there's 10 there. So now this interceding and this bargaining, and that was the bonus of Abraham. But Abraham is God's friend, and there's a friendship covenant, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But basically, that's why Abraham could do this. But the short version of it is anything one party was willing to do for, if party A was willing to do something for party B, then party B then was obligated in this friendship covenant to do the same thing. And this is, Abraham's called the friend of God. It's just a little deeper than people might think of a shallow friendship, like here in America, we're oh yeah, I mean, this guy's friends. We like to go bowling together or whatever, and then bowling alley shuts and their friendship ends. No, it's a lot deeper than that. Okay, and we'll talk about that more in a future lesson. But it's important to understand that, because look at the boldness he has in speaking. He has this confidence. Even though he says these things like, "Don't be angry. Well, let me speak once," whatever. This confidence, he can talk to the Lord like as a friend. Now, all right, now we're going to continue on. Sorry about that. We're going to go to the next chapter, Genesis 19, and we're going to start off in verses 1 through 5. And there came two angels to Sodom at evening, and Lot sat in the gate of Sodom. And Lot, seeing them, rose up to them, and he bowed himself his face towards the ground. And he said, Behold, now, my lords, turn in, I pray you, to your servant's house, and tarry all night, and wash your feet, and you shall rise up early and go your ways. And they said, Nay, but we will abide all night in the street all night. And he pressed them greatly, and they turned into him near his house, and he made a feast to them, and then baked unleavened bread, and they did eat. Before they lay down, the city of the men, even the men of Sodom, compassed the house round about, young and old, all the people from every quarter. And they came to Lot and said to him, Where are the men which came in this night? Bring them out to us that we may know them. Well, as we continue here, there's kind of a lot here. Notice these two men are two angels. This plain tells us. Malach means Malach, similar to Malach, which king. Malach, angels, means messengers. Okay, these are angelic beings, not like people that are messengers in this case. These are messengers from heaven. And notice where they find him. He's at the gate of Sodom. And remember, the gate, judgment courts of judgment were at the gate where everyone could see it. Him sitting in the gate indicates he's become a man of province in Sodom. And if you remember back when they separated, First, he cast his tent facing Sodom. Then we find him living in Sodom. His herds. I mean, it seems like he sold his flocks and herds and moved into town. Well, now he's not just in Sodom. He's not casually doing business there. You know, he's a respected member of the community, and he's lived there. He's lived there for, if you remember, he's lived there for about 20 years now, if you remember right. If you remember, and so these men here, you know, he's very familiar with Sodom, and notice his concern. They're just going to sleep out all night, which must seem strange, but actually was very common back in the day, particularly if it's like here in Oklahoma right now. The fall weather's pretty nice. It's really nice like a couple of weeks ago. You know, and it's just, you know, it's been no big deal to sleep outside. And perhaps in some cases it was cooler than being in, you know, a little more comfortable than being indoors because of if it was warmer outside. You know, it just wasn't that uncommon. But he's not going to do this, okay? And he makes them a feast. And those unleavened bread, the first time it's mentioned here, you know, why unleavened bread? It's quick, you know. And he had some other stuff, obviously. But, you know, it didn't take long. You didn't have to wait for it to rise and everything. But, you know, this feast of unleavened bread here, as it were, you know, foreshadows, of course, the feast of unleavened bread. Now, when sin is taken away, in this case, well, sin will be taken away, as we shall see. So now the problem starts coming out. This report now remember these two have come as witnesses to confirm the crime before the judgment can come. And the crime comes, and this becomes very apparent right away. Notice, old and young, here from all quarters, the men of Sodom. And while they want to know them, doesn't mean they don't want to meet them. It means they want to. That means they want to rape them. No, someone having a man and woman entering in a sexual relationship. It said the man knows the woman. Adam knew his wife Eve, and she conceived. If you remember our series from before the patriarchs. So, you know, so now they're wanting that they're not. I mean, this is the LGBTQ plus people here. We're talking about B2Q plus. Forgot the B. Okay, plus people here. We're talking about, you know, and you know, and they want, you know, basically they want to rape these guys. Now we're looking at, you know, but Lot's not going to have. But now we're looking at Lot's response to that here in Genesis 9. If you see on Genesis 19 verses 6 through 9, Lot went to the door unto them and shut the door after him. Without the door unto them, shut the door after him. And he said, I pray you, brethren, do not so wickedly. Now behold, I have 2 daughters which have not known a man. Let me, I pray you, bring them out to you. You do them as good in your eyes. Only these men do nothing. For therefore came they under the shadow of my roof. And they said, stand back. And they said again, this fellow came in to sojourn, and he will needs be judged. Now we'll deal worse with you than with them. They pressed sore upon the man, even Lot, and came near to break the door. Okay, so notice Lot's plea. I mean, Lot is protecting these men. At first, he pleads with them, don't do this. You know, he knows eventually it's gonna bring judgment on him. He doesn't want that judgment to come upon him. And he wants to protect these men. And notice how far he's willing to go. People say, well, that's terrible. He put his daughters out there, except. But they came into the shadow of his roof. And in that day and time, he was obligated to lay down his life. And once someone came into the shadow of your roof, you had to guard. It was an obligation to protect them with your life and with everything else. Now he could. Lot looked and he realized pretty quick he was way outnumbered. And like a lot of people, once they realize they're not in a position of strength, they're not in a position of strength to just just to fight people off. They try to placate them. So Lot was going to placate him, try to placate him. And and Lot's lived there a long time. He may have known that they really weren't interested in his daughters. But not, these were men interested in men. Well, look at their response. Lot's trying to do everything he can to protect these. And now look at them. They tell him to get out of the way. And they obviously didn't. And now they're saying, well, he came in here. Now he's going to be judged. Well, he was in the gate. He was already judged. But, it was the only righteous judge they had, and they didn't like him. They're about to execute their own ideal of judicial reform here and get rid of him. And notice they're going to deal worse with him than with Lot than with the men. But they weren't satisfied just to get Lot. Because notice they came there to break the door. They still want to rape those two men. And Lot's in serious trouble here. But he's done all he can to protect these men who've come under the shadow of his roof. Now we continue on Genesis 19, verse 10 through 13, and read the following. But the men put forth their hand and pulled Lot into the house to them and shut to the door. They smote the men that were at the door with blindness, both great and small, so they worried themselves to find the door. And the men said to Lot, have you any here besides son-in-law or daughter or sons? Son-in-law and your sons and your daughters and whatsoever you have in the city, bring them out of this place. For we will destroy this place, because the cry has waxed great before the face of the Lord, and the Lord has sent us to destroy it. Okay. Notice Lot had tried to protect them. Now they protect Lot. And this blindness is not just the ability to see. Their whole senses were messed up. They couldn't find the door. I mean, back when I grew up in Arkansas, back when I grew up in Northwest Arkansas, it's even a blind hog finds an acorn sometimes. But these are worse than blind hogs. They couldn't even find a door. The door is a lot bigger than an acorn. This is not just blindness of the eyes, but their mind as well. They're just walking around, not going straight and running into each other and doing everything, but they find everything but the door. It's not just, again, like blind men today could go along a wall, feel along, move along it. Their mind is blind, not just their eyes. Now, notice, remember Abraham, we destroy it if there's righteous there. No. Well, what's going to happen? The righteous are going to be taken out, bring them out of this place. The righteous are being told to leave. They're going to take them out. Just like Noah, prepare an ark. You're going to go out. Why? Because just like the earth was destroyed the flood, this place is going to be destroyed. The cry was waxed great before that cry is twofold. The first one, we've just seen it. Lot brought those men in because this was a common occurrence in Sodom. How many of their victims they raped, probably to death, cried out to God for mercy, cried out for justice and judgment on these wicked LGBTQ plus people. And you'll see why. We've already seen some evidence of that. We'll look at some more in a moment that that's what they are. And thus the Lord had sent them to destroy it. Again, he didn't send them to figure to see if it was true or not. He sent there to have the witnesses that it was true. Then they could execute judgment. Now we're going to talk about this wickedness that's so great, because it's more than just one thing. It's an entire lifestyle that we're going to look at, as we'll see. And we begin here in Deuteronomy 23, verse 17 through 18. There shall be no whore of the daughters of Israel, nor a sodomite of the sons of Israel. You shall not bring the hire of a whore or the price of a dog into the house of the Lord your God for any vow. For even both of these are an abomination unto the Lord your God. What's an abomination? A whore. A whore is what? A woman that sells her sexual services for money. Now, a man that did that, the price of a dog, is about a man that would do that for other men. Why a dog? Because, well, often it was the man, the sodomite would get in doggy position. The guy would join him like a dog mate, like two dogs mating. Okay. So, but notice he's called a sodomite. Sodomite. It takes a new term, a new meaning. Not just literally a member, someone who's from Sodom, but anyone who does those same kind of activities, and those activities are plainly homosexuality, as we've just demonstrated, and is brought out here. But that's not all there is. It's an entire LGBTQ plus lifestyle, and we're gonna see some more of that lifestyle right here in Ezekiel 16, verse 49 through 50. Behold, this was the iniquity of your sister Sodom. Pride, fullness of bread, and abundance of idleness was in her, and in their daughters. Neither did she strengthen the hand of the poor and the needy. They were high and committed abominations before me. Therefore, I took them away as I saw good. Notice her and her daughters. A reference to the women. It wasn't just gay men; it was lesbians as well. But notice their iniquity. What's driving this? Pride. And what do we see with the LGBTQ plus movement? Oh yeah, that pride flag. Everything's pride with them. This is the pride. That same attitude of pride in the LGBTQ plus movement today. That's not just in the U.S., but everywhere else, all over the world, including Israel. It's called the Pride movement. Fullness of bread, the whole body beautiful movement. It doesn't matter if I'm eating way too much and I'm gluttonizing and my body's beautiful anyways. And abundant, just overeating, abundance of idleness. And we've seen this in the U.S. and Israel both. We're won't go to work. Work shortage in the U.S. in a lot of places, in a lot of areas. Not because there's not jobs, because people just refuse to go to work. In some cases, for a while, there was a big problem of people would get hired for a job and never show up, because as long as they got food, and then go around committing, and go around entertaining themselves with their perversion we just talked about, they don't see a reason to work. In fact, what they want to do instead is go out and protest. And if you thought, how these protesters for 3 years go around, how are they getting the money to do that? Well, they're doing it through fraud. Here in Oklahoma, our state sent out a little alert, an email about this thing, about all these people went a month or so ago, who are often working poor people. They're getting some assistance from the government to feed their families, and and they go buy their groceries. They got them all stacked up. They know how much they get per month, more or less, and they go to pay, and there's nothing on their card. And why? Because these LGBTQ plus people, so they could keep protesting and having, and having peaceful protests with buildings burned behind them or whatever, except because they're haughty. Uh, basically, a scammer. They said, "Oh yeah, filling the information as if there were other people got their information somewhere, some sort of identity theft." And said, "Oh, the card's been lost to the new one to this new address. I moved, sent it to this new address, whatever. I went and moved, and I lost it in the move." And they basically stole it. According to what the state wrote, the words of the state, they literally stole food off of families' tables, stole the food of young children off their table, so they can continue in this because they're too lazy. Because they're too lazy to work. And they eat too much food. They're like, oh, some of them have even been recipients already of these cards. And they're like, well, they don't give me enough. That's because they eat too much, and they're haughty. They're justifying their actions. Well, we got to do what we got to do to protect our rights. Blah blah blah. And they've committed abominations before God. And those abominations again are the LGBTQ plus things, which includes pedophiles, by the way, that plus. But it's beyond that. It's the whole lifestyle that we see with the whole pride movement. And again, pride's at the beginning of it. They named themselves that. No one else named them that. They named themselves that. And what's the end result? God took them away as good. And he's going to take away the LGBTQ plus people today. Eventually, this won't go on forever. He can't let it go on forever. If he's a loving God, they will not only destroy themselves, they'll destroy everyone around them. Now, we get a little bit. We get a little bit more insight about this here in Jude 7 and 8. As Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities round about them in like manner give themselves over to fornication, going after strange flesh, are set forth as an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal fire. Likewise, these filthy dreamers defile the flesh, despising dominion, and speak evil of dignitaries. Okay, first of all, they give themselves over to fornication. Fornication, in the Bible, is any kind of sex between anyone besides a man and a woman in a not just in marriage, because Jesus said people will be married in adultery, but in a right partnership for love. They've got to be men and women who are eligible to marry each other. But these are perhaps not just in adultery, but they're going after strange flesh. God didn't make men to be with men and women to be with women, and so on and so forth. Even their dreams are filthy. That's what causes them to defile the flesh. They dream of a world where this absolute abominable behavior, this wickedness, is normal. Where they feel love and acceptance for being wicked and wicked beyond. I mean, so wicked, God's right sees he has no option but to destroy them. Why? Because they despise dominion. They despise governments. They don't want nobody telling them what to do. And then it's talking about the evil of dignitaries, not talking about just the governments. If you read on this passage, it's talking about the heavenly beings. And at the bottom line, their bottom line is, as I saw one protester homemade sign, take us off the God standard. The cry of their victims went out to God, but their cry against God is they're crying out against God. Take us off your standard. We do not want to be we don't want to be ruled by the government. We don't know and tell us what we're doing is wrong. We don't want, and this is not just problem again in the U.S., it's a problem in Israel. I mean, Hamas, people were like, well, Hamas attacked on October 7th. And so when they were, they were pretty smart about it. They took out but why Israel usually had another line of defense that wasn't there, and that was reservists watching with their physical eyes, watching the walls. And those reservists weren't there. They only had the technology surveillance going on. They didn't have the physical. They had the reservists there watching the eyes with arms who could have rushed in and saved a lot of these people and fought back Hamas. And the Hamas picked this because they knew this. Where were they? These reservists were refusing to show up to work so they could protest. They could protest judicial reform that they were concerned would somehow restrict their LGBTQ plus movement. If you watch the videos before this, when all those protests, those signs, the pride signs were everywhere. And because this is, in the end, this lifestyle brings death, not just to the recipients, not just to those practicing it, but to everyone around them. And that's why and notice this vengeance is not just this eternal fire. It's not just snuff them out in this world. It's hell. It's the lake of fire. And anyone who didn't warn them hates them in the worst way possible. You're like, oh, I love them too much to tell them what they're doing is wrong. No, you love yourself too much to be persecuted. You hate them. As far as you're concerned, they can burn if you don't warn them. Now, we continue on in Genesis 19, verses 14 through 17. And Lot went out and spoke unto his son-in-laws, which married his daughters, and said to them, up, get you out of this place, for the Lord will destroy this city. But he seemed as one that mocked to his sons-in-laws. And when the morning arose, the angels hastened Lot, saying, arise, take your wife and your 2 daughters, which are with you, are here, lest you be consumed in iniquity of the city. Now, while he lingered, the man laid hold on his hand and upon the hand of his wife and upon the hand of his 2 daughters, Lord being merciful unto him. And they brought him forth and set them without the city. And they came to pass when they brought them forth abroad, he said, escape for your life. Look not behind you, near shall you stay at all in the plain. Escape to the mountain, lest you be consumed. So what do we see? So notice Lot, perhaps only 2 straight men in the whole city. Lot managed to find them. I mean, they must have been fairly decent men. I mean, Lot was going to let him marry his daughters. But they says they mocked him, means they thought he was joking. They didn't take him seriously. They thought perhaps, well, I knew Lot was kind of religious, but he's religious not. Look at this. He's claiming God's going to destroy our city. And they just wouldn't take him seriously, so they didn't go with him. So the angels arose and took Lot. And they went and got Lot and his wife and 2 daughters. That's it. Only Abraham thought there was at least 10. For all his herdsmen and stuff, perhaps they'd moved out of the whole area. Who knows? But there's only Lot, his wife, and his 2 daughters. They couldn't get the son-in-laws to go. And notice how Lot and them Lot's lingering. But the time has come, and he's being taken out. He's being taken out. The Lord won't take collateral damage. He's been taken out of harm's way, whether he wants to or not, and he's leaving all his stuff behind. And notice after they got him out of the city, what they tell him to do? 2 things: don't look behind you. Basically, and the other one is, don't stay in the plain but go into the mountain. Why? Destruction is going to come to the plain, just like destruction came upon the face of the earth, and the ark was above it. Also, destruction will be on the plain, and they were to escape above it. And we talked about this when we talked about the day of escape. Showed it in great detail because those are the two things Yeshua compares the tribulation and rapture and all that too. That same pattern is there. We won't have a choice. We're going to take those who are counted worthy in Luke 21:36 are going to be. We're in the twinkle of an eye moment. We are going to have. We're going to be brought up. We're going to be brought up to meet the Lord in the air, above destruction. Then the destruction can come. It's the same pattern here. However, in this case, they're not being translated like Elijah. I mean, Enoch was. Elijah later, Elijah's going to go up a chariot of fire, and they're having to physically do this. And Lot appears to have a problem here. He's around 40 years old, like I said, and maybe his legs cramped. Maybe he's just gotten been in city life and gotten late. Wasn't getting enough exercise. I don't know, but let's just see what he says here. And again, as we continue, just 19 verses 28 through 23. And Lot said to him, "Oh, not so, my lord. Look now, your servant has found grace in your sight, and you have magnified your mercy, which you showed to me, and saved my life. And I cannot escape to the mountain, lest some evil take me and I die. Now the city is near to flee into, and it's a little one. Oh, let me escape there. Is it not a little one? And my soul shall live." And they said to him, "See, I have accepted you concerning this thing also. I will not destroy the city for which you have spoken. Haste you and escape there, for I cannot do anything till you've come here. Come there. Come to that place." And the name of the city was Zoar, and the city was risen on the earth when Lot entered into Zoar. Okay, so Lot, like Abraham's negotiating. Notice the Lord, my Lord. Notice it's the all caps, meaning it's Yahweh Vave, is the word translated there. And he's saying, so he's talking again. Now the angels left on the flee, but now the Lord, he's met the Lord. Remember, the Lord was coming this direction as well. The Lord's the one that's actually going to do destruction, or is going to be out there and destroying. And perhaps the angels have some part to play as well, as they indicated earlier. But notice this. Or maybe the Lord's doing it in the sense we say a king destroyed a city and really a bunch of people destroyed, and the king gave the command. That's probably more the ideal here. But he's negotiating, and he's saying, "Lest some evil overtake me and I die." Well, one thing he's concerned about is the people in Sodom and Gomorrah who wanted to do him in, perhaps chasing him and overcoming and catching up to him. Perhaps they intended the next day to do evil to him. Once the blindness wore off and they came to their senses, or at least he's a little concerned about that. So this Zoar means insignificant. And remember, when those kings took Lot captive, and those 5 kings of Sodom, 4 of them had names, but one of them was named Bela, and we're told that's the same as Zoar. It means insignificant. If there's 100,000 people out there, this perhaps is 1,000. Or people understand when they talk about kings back in those days, they were just city states. They were cities in the land around them, which generally, the border was halfway between them and the next city. Kind of draw a line, perhaps be a river or something to help. But that was kind of the way it was done. So he's got this little one there in a little place of refuge. And so he's gonna let him do this, but notice this. I cannot do anything till you come there. Why? Because the Lord will not take collateral damage. He's going to destroy the other 4 cities, but not this one. But he can't destroy the other 4 cities till he gets there. So now, so Lot is fleeing to this littler city, hoping they're not, at least they aren't out there trying to kill him like the people in Sodom. And and he thinks he can make it there. His leg can make it, he can make it there. And again, who knows? He's around 40 years old, maybe not in great shape. That's as far as he thinks he can make it, or at least far as he thinks he can get there and outrun the people behind. He thinks are behind him. So when the sun's risen on the earth, he's entered into Zoar. Remember. So now he started when the sunrise began. The lights leak. If you ever been up sunrise, there's light leaking over the just like sunset. There's light leaking over the horizon first, and then the sun's actually all the way up. Okay, now it's all the way up. He's in Zoar. Let's continue on and see what happens here. So we know, he didn't run very far or very long. So what that tells us. Now in Genesis 19, verse 24 through 29, we read the following. Then the Lord rained upon Sodom and Gomorrah brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. And he overthrew those cities and all the plain and all the inhabitants of the cities and that which grew upon the ground. But his wife looked back behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. Abraham got up in the morning in the place where he stood before the Lord. He looked toward Sodom and Gomorrah and toward all the plain, and beheld, lo, the smoke of the country went up as a smoke of a furnace. And it came to pass that when God destroyed the cities of the plain, that God remembered Abraham and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow, when he overthrew the cities in which Lot dwelt. Okay, now Bimbo said this. We'll look at this in a moment, but say it's an exaggeration. Brimstone. And brimstone, if you don't know, can mean white phosphorus, some sulfur, or maybe a mix of the two. And if it's a mix of the two, it burns super hot and smells super bad. Okay, like rotten eggs. And there's a couple of mechanisms. There's a couple of natural mechanisms. Lord is control the earth and the earth and the heavens. He could have used one. Of course, was one. There's evidences of volcanic activity that actually threw white phosphorus and white phosphorus. That's what. And that, by the way, if you don't know what that is, you ever had if you ever had a matchstick, that's a little white tip on there that burns. And friction will cause it to ignite, right? They can burn it like I think it's like 3,000. I think it'll burn it like 3,500 degrees Fahrenheit. If you get a clump of the size of your fist, set it on steel and light it on fire, it'll melt down through 4 inches of metal. It's what's often used for destroying tanks and stuff. Okay, to burn through the metal. So we're talking about hot and heat death for human beings is instantaneous at 900 degrees. I mean, these people were dead instantly. Okay, before you may have seen pictures of them getting hit by something. No, the heat alone killed them before they ever got hit by anything, probably. So that's one way. Another way would just been a simple meteor, again, of white phosphorus, like a lot of things. Like parts of the space shuttle or whatever. Once there's the Earth's atmosphere and it's going at highest speed, it'll burst into flames. Because oxygen, which you need for fire, and burst into flames, right? So either way, it literally means what it says here. And there's again a couple of mechanisms that could explain that quite naturally. But regardless, the Lord's behind it. What was the commandment? Don't look back. And his wife did. She became, it says pillar of salt here, but King James, but in the Hebrew, it's more literally a pile of salt. In Nagasaki and Hiroshima, when the atomic bombs were dropped, the heat vaporized people instantly, and they became, and piles of salt were left where they were. So this is the commandment. Perhaps all that we're looking upon this would see it. And why would his wife look back? Well, her heart was there. Her stuff was there. We don't know where. Maybe her family was back there. We don't know where Lot. We don't know much about her. Perhaps there's no evidence that Lot was married before. He separated from Abraham. And perhaps he married her there, or perhaps he is already married. Either way, her heart was back there, and she turned back. And there's a lot that says a lot to us, and we'll talk about that later. Okay. But this is very real. And remember Abraham. And remember this, he's not going to take collateral damage, he told Abraham. And so he got Lot out of the way first. In the same way, he's not going to take collateral damage in the tribulation. And we showed this extensively when I talked about the day of escape. Why? That's why the Lord uses this as one of his examples for us to compare with and know how things work. He's just not going to take collateral damage. But Lot, remember, there were conditions to escape, and lots of them was they had to go to Zoar and not look back. The mountain originally, because that was the picture the Lord was painting. Zoar, because God's merciful, and not look back. And the same thing in Luke 21:36, those who are watching and praying, and the parallel passages tell some parables to make it plain, carrying out the Great Commission as part of that watching and praying, are going to escape. And if we don't, we're going to be like we're going to be like Lot's wife and caught up into destruction. But the way of escape is made for us, just like it was made for Lot and his wife. It's up to us to take it. Now, we're going to look at some things about this being literal, and why this particular way. And in Deuteronomy 29:20-24, we read this: the Lord will not spare him. Then the Lord and his jealousy shall smoke against that man. All the curses written in his law shall lie upon the Lord, shall not blot his name from heaven. They'll separate him unto evil all the laws of Israel, according to all the curses of the covenant are written in this book. So the generation to come, your children shall rise up after you, strangers shall look upon that shall come from a far land, shall say when they see the plagues of the land, the sickness, Lord is laid upon it. That the whole land there is a brimstone, and salt and burning, and is not sown, nor bears, nor any grass grows therein, like the overthrow of Sodom and Gomorrah, Admah and Zeboim, which the Lord overthrew in his anger, in his wrath. Even all the nations shall say, wherefore has the Lord done this to this land? What means the heat of his great anger? Okay, so when Israel, talks about the man first, the Lord separating out from evil these curses, but when Israel as a nation does it, God's gonna make an example of that man. But when the nation does it, he's gonna make an example of the entire nation. For who? For the rest of the people. Because as I've said before, it's always been about the Gentiles. He wants the Gentiles to look and say, we don't want to be on God's bad side. Make an example. He's gonna make an example of them. That's what they agreed to when they, by the way, when they signed up in the original covenant. It wasn't the commandments were the covenant. The covenant was the agreement to keep the commandments, and that penalty phase if you didn't. That's what we're looking at here as part of that penalty phase. And notice this. So this happened in the northern kingdom when the Assyrians came. The land became desolate, we're told. This happened when the Babylonians drug them off in the southern kingdom. The land became desolate. It happened again when Yeshua was rejected, his disciples were persecuted. They were persecuting the seed of Abraham, and he that curses the seed will be cursed. And it wasn't just 70 years like with the other dispersion with Judah. It was over 1,700 years. Because God said, you must. I'm raising up I'll raise up a prophet like Moses, and him you must obey. If you don't, require it of you. And this is what the requiring meant. And Mark Twain bore witness to this. His first book, the most popular book, the most best-selling book in his entire lifetime, was called Innocents Abroad. And he took a trip across. He took a trip across Europe and into the Holy Land and wrote down what he saw. A lot of it's sarcastic and so on and so forth. When he got to what's hype of the day, I believe it's called Acre. Got to the port there, up there in the northwest corner of modern Israel. And they took a caravan type thing and went on this tour down to Jerusalem. And he wrote that he wrote the land was exactly like this. For 3 or 4 days, he said they didn't see so much as a goat. There wasn't any grass growing. There's just, thistles and, he said the only thing that grew there were the fringe of worthless soil, olive trees and cactuses. That's it. No grass. You couldn't. No one's planting anything. No one's doing anything. Okay. There wasn't millions of people there who somehow got displaced later. Nobody was living there, and that continued until the missionaries showed up in 1870 and began making the land ready for Jews to come, and Jews started coming in that same year. By the way, the missionaries went there. They were Christian Zionists. They went there, and everywhere the Jews moved to, the land started becoming more fertile. And then the Ottoman Turks took people from other countries that inside the Ottoman Empire and moved them to the land to farm it. The people there didn't own it. The owners were back in what's today's Turkey. Because the land was becoming fertile because the Lord began the regathering process. But that whole in between time, exactly what he said happened here to that land. It's like, oh, that's far fetched. That couldn't happen to somewhere. It happened to what's basically the country of Israel today, and was like that from 135 AD until 1870s when it began to change. And there's photos of this too. The camera was invented in 1823. And there's not just Mark Twain's words, there's photos that show this as well. And one guy I saw, his father, his great-grandfather or whatever, started taking photos of this mountain, and they did like a time-lapse photography of it. It's all barren. And today it's all green and covered with grass and trees and whatever. Same mountain. It was quite interesting to watch. Every year they went out the same time of year and took a photo of this mountain. Because, his his great-grandfather, whoever it had been, great-great-grandfather believed that this was going to happen, that would be restored, as the word of God had said. Now, we got another witness to this. Yeshua, Jesus. Likewise, also as it was in the day in Luke 17, verse 28 through 29, we read his words here. Likewise, it was in the days of Lot. They did eat and drank, and they brought and sowed, and they planted and they built it. And the same day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them all. To say this didn't happen, the exaggeration is to say Yeshua is either delusional, misinformed, but he believes the word of God, which we just read, a liar. There's no good way to spin this about what you're saying about Yeshua. If you say, nah, that didn't really happen, that was that was allegorical and so on and so forth. Yeshua here confirms Lot really existed, the land was really existed, except, and it really happened. But there's another witness too. And we read this in second, and it's Peter here. We read earlier from Jude about this, but now we're reading in Peter, 2 Peter 2, verses 6 through 10. And turn the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah into ashes, condemn them with overthrow, making them an example to those that should live ungodly. And deliver just Lot, vexed with the filthy conversation of the wicked. For that righteous man dwelling among them and seeing and hearing vexes righteous soul from day to day with their unlawful deeds. And the Lord knows how to deliver the godly out of temptation, to reserve the unjust to the day of judgment, to be punished. But chiefly them that walk after the flesh of the lust of uncleanness and despise government. Presumptuous are they, self-willed, they are not afraid to speak of dignitaries. Okay, visible examples, what the Greek literally says. You can people literally could go there and see it, and it's true today. For a long time, people said, "Oh, it must have been under the Dead Sea," because some theologian back in the 1800s said, "Oh, we think it was on the," he explained it's being on the south end of the Dead Sea and underneath it. But if you go back to Bethel and go east, you're north of the Dead Sea. If you go north of the Dead Sea in the area the Bible says, one thing, there's a big area that's all gypsum ash. You can make out, it's pretty plain, the outline of ziggurats buried into that ash. There's little piles of salt, little piles and chunks of salt. The animals will come through there, and particularly ibexes, and dig up with their hooves. And there's nothing growing there, just, as we read. There's just little scrub things like cactus maybe or something. But that's it. You can't grow any grass there or nothing. And just right at the edge of that area there, not far from it, they have unburied one of these cities, probably Zoar, because it wasn't destroyed. Okay. But it's from the same time period and fits the description and everything. So there's a visible example. It's visible. You can go look at it. Not only do you have the witness of Moses, Joshua, Peter, and a little earlier we saw Jude also said something similar to what Peter said. You can actually go and look at it yourself. There is not a question whether or not it happened. Now, notice Lot here is called just. The just were delivered. He wasn't just delivered from the destruction. Notice he's delivered from the filthy manner of life. That's what conversation means. You see it in like King James. The Greek word corresponds to halakha. Halakha, the Hebrew word, meaning the walk. The Greek word means lifestyle. The filthy lifestyle of the wicked. Okay, notice he dwelled among, and it vexed him to be among them. And you're like, why did he stay? Well, probably like a lot of Americans, he went there for prosperity. His wealth was all tied up in there. He'd be like, I'd go somewhere else. My business wasn't here, or whatever the case, was. I mean, he didn't like being there. He couldn't stand the way they lived. But he put up with it for money, for prosperity, and perhaps to please his wife. But it didn't work out well for him. But he was delivered. And notice, he was delivered, and the unjust were destroyed, were punished. And who were they? The lust of uncleanness, that same LGBTQ plus business we see today. Those ones who despise government. Nobody's going to tell, despise government. It's criminal behavior, and they don't just want decriminalized, which it's largely been in the U.S. They want people to love us and accept us for carrying out our criminal behavior. I mean, they might as well be saying, well, we know we're serial killers and we rape your daughters, but love us and accept us. That's the way we were made. It's the same thing. That's their presumption. They're self-willed. Their attitudes, nobody's going to tell me what to do. They're not afraid to speak of dignitaries. They're not afraid to speak out against their rulers. But they're not afraid to hold up signs saying, take us off the God standard. But their judgment is certain. Sodom and Gomorrah give us evidence of that. And again, I'm saying to you, if you do not warn them, you don't love them, you hate them with the worst kind of hatred. Rather than hear them complain or call you a hater or whatever they might do, you'd rather keep your own comfort and just let them burn. Now we're gonna find out what. Now we're look what happens. What happens after the destruction? After the destruction, remember we're talking about Lot and Sodom because they're tied together, and we'll see that they're still tied together. We'll see that even more as we go along. But let's continue with what happened to Lot next, and then it'll become clear what I'm talking about. And so we continue in Genesis 19 and verse 30 through 33, and read the following. And Lot went up out of Zoar and dwelt in the mountain, his 2 daughters with him, for he feared to dwell in Zoar. he dwelt in the cave, he and his 2 daughters. And the firstborn said to the younger, our father is old. There's not a man on earth to come into us after the manner of all men. Come, let us make our father drink wine, and we lie with him, and we shall preserve seed to our father. They made their father drink wine that night, and the firstborn went in and lay with her father. He perceived not when she lay down and when she rose. Okay, so now, look, our father's old. So that tells us something. Like I said, he was a minimum of 40, but now this tells us he's a minimum of 60 years old. That was the age of being considered an elder in the law that's coming. And he's at least 60 years old. And notice, they think he's lost his wife. He even got remarried. He's too old to have children, which, they're concerned, they're concerned he's going to die off, more accurately. He's old and he may not make it till he has children, because they obviously think he have children because look at their plot. And remember their fiancés, their fiancés that they were espoused to thought, they thought their dad was a religious nut, and they got destroyed. So now they have this plan. I'm going to drink wine for preserved seed. So they start carrying it out. The first one does this. He lays her fire and she rose up. And he didn't know. No, he didn't know when she lay down when she arose. Now, why wine? Who's the first? Remember, we saw the same pattern once before with Noah. We talked about before the patriarchs, before he went to the fall holidays. Okay. And why? Because Noah, of course, just 8 people survived. He doubtlessly knew people who died in the flood, and perhaps pounding on the ark as it was lifted up as it was being lifted off the earth and whatever, and they couldn't get in, so they drank wine for comfort. They perhaps drank him, and they just plied him and just kept giving him more and more. That was their plan, and it worked. He had lost his wife. His wealth was gone. They're in this cave, and the cave's appears to be facing all the destruction they just escaped. And that's part of what's driving his daughters. Now, why they didn't just come to their senses and say, let's go to Abraham and get some help? Well, one reason is they didn't know where Abraham was, of course. And perhaps, he's old, it'd be difficult to travel. He doesn't have a horse or a camel or anything more. He just escaped with his clothes on his back. Now notice they got this idea, and notice their motive. They love their fathers while they're doing this. They don't want his name to go be taken, disappear off the face of the earth, which is a big deal to people back then. Okay. They want his name and a lot of men today, they want their family line to continue, his family line to continue. They're doing it out of love, but they're doing the wrong thing for the right reason. Now, we saw with Adam and Eve, their children, obviously, their sons and brother and sister married each other. There's no commandment about any of these things until the law was given later. Abraham had married his own half-sister, we saw last week. But this is the first time we see daughters and mothers, daughter and father, involved in sex here. And people say, well, people get too drunk, they can't have sex. Well, yes, they can. He didn't know. He didn't know when they went in and when they went out. Men can do this. And, women too, not just women, but men too. And I've seen, more than one man who didn't even remember, went to a party, didn't even remember the girl being there. A paternity test proved, oh yeah, you had sex with her at least once, And there was a woman I knew that was pregnant and looked to the state for help. And they said, well, we want to know the name of the father, so we can, he's going to help. He's going to give you paternity money and whatever, right? And she said she had no idea. She went to a party, didn't remember anything else. Couldn't remember. She went there, she saw people, she just didn't remember. At a certain point, she blacked out. There's no memory. She'd passed out or whatever. And, and she wrote them, and they said, well, write a list of when you remember there. And she gave them a list of 37 suspects. That's what's wrong with this lifestyle. It's destructive. In their case, they they're plying him with liquor, and that's the oldest trick in the book. People are getting involved with sex with them. Literally, here's the book, and here it is, ode. Okay, to get people to have sex with them is to ply them with liquor. And of course, the skilled people don't just keep they'll talk to them nicely and say, oh, that just get them talking about how they feel. And, oh, that's so good. Oh, dear, have another drink. That's what they did here. Men do it to women, but women can also do it to men, as in this case here. And we continue on Genesis 19, 34 through 38. We read the following. It came to pass on the morrow, the firstborn said to the younger, behold, yesternight I lay with my father, let's drink wine also, and you go in and lie with him. We should reserve the seed of our father. And they made their father drink wine that night also. The younger arose and lay with him. They perceived not. She lay down, and when she arose, they were both the daughters of Lot with child by their father. And they bore a son. The firstborn son called his name Moab, who is the father of the Moabites unto this day. And the younger, she also bore a son and called his name Ben-Ami, the same as the father of the children of Ammon unto this day. Okay, Ben-Ami literally means son of my father. So they carried this out. So they commit incest. But notice again, preserve the seed of our father. They're doing the wrong thing for the right reason, but still the wrong thing. And it's still, this is of course no fault of their children, but their children have been conceived in this wrong manner. It creates instability in their life, just like we talked about Ishmael before. There was an instability, from conception, really, because things weren't done right by the parents, weren't done in the right manner by the parents. And the same things here. Remember, Ishmael was going to be a wild man. Well, it's going to affect these two and their descendants as well. And we'll look at that in detail here in a moment. But the main thing here we focus on is they are looking back, not physically like now they're looking the same direction their mother looked. They're not looking back when the destruction occurred, but they're looking back afterwards, and that has clouded their vision. And all their they lost all their stuff and whatever. They just can't imagine starting over and having the time to do it the right way. And they grew up in Sodom and Gomorrah. They grew up in Sodom. There's no mention of having a wife or daughters when they left there. Remember, I think the wife may have got mentioned, but there's no mention of the daughters. They're not that they're about they're perhaps around 20 years old. They're getting ready to get married, and that was their security and stuff. They're going off their feelings. And they're looking back and thinking, well, that's all we knew. We don't know what to do. And there's a warning there for us. And Yeshua gives it to us here in Luke 17, verse 31 through 32. In that day, he which sits shall be upon the housetop, and his stuff in the household. Let him not come to take it away. He is in the field, let him likewise not return back. Remember Lot's wife. Okay, now, in the day here, in this day here, it's talking about the destruction that's coming, not about the people who are going to be taken up, but about people who aren't. And this some of the destruction that's coming in upon Israel. Let them run for their lives like Lot did. Okay, I mean, Lot wasn't given any chance to do this stuff, right? To get this stuff, he wasn't allowed. He was just taken by the hand by the angels and drug out, but not to return. And remember Lot's wife. In the like manner, let us not look back. Let us not think about, oh, things were better before I knew the Lord. Yada yada yada. No, you were in a wicked, evil lifestyle, surrounded by wicked, evil people, and judgment is coming on them if they don't turn from that. And like Lot's wife, if you long for it and your heart's still with that, and you go back to it, it's coming on you too, you as well. We must not look back, and we must learn to do things new ways. We must not rely on the old patterns we knew before and run back to those, like Lot's daughters did. They had learned some things in Sodom, and went back to and relied on their previous experience. God has called us to something new, and we need to read his word and start applying it and learn to do everything in a new way. And the right way that's going to avoid the instability we're about to, that's going to avoid all the problems, which we're going to look at here in a minute. Some more problems. Now we're going to look at these two descendants of Lot, Moab and Ammon and their descendants. And we're going to see how this instability that started at conception, really, how it plays out, it's going to play out, plays out into their future. And kind of sets the course of their future to a large degree before they're ever born. But first thing we need to know is here in Deuteronomy 2, verse 9. Lord said to me, distress not the Ammonite, the Moabites, or contend with them in battle, for I will not give you their land for possession, because I have given Ar unto the children of Lot for possession. Okay, so notice, remember, Lot asked for the valley. The Lord's given them more, okay? He's given, this is roughly the area of northwest Jordan today. And God's telling Israel, you can't have it. You know, so if you look at the boundaries of the promised land, Euphrates to the branch of the Nile River. Remember, it splits into 7 branches, and the branch nearest Israel today, the easternmost branch will be the border of Israel in the future, the promise. But the greater promised land, Israel's only given the land to Canaan. The greater promised land included other descendants of Abraham. It was for Abraham and his descendants, but the ones through Isaac got the land of Canaan, the best part. Okay, they didn't get all of it, and God's not about to give it to them now. It still belongs. It's been given to them because they're the children of Lot. They're not God forsaken. He doesn't hate them or something. He doesn't hold them responsible for their bad conception. In Deuteronomy 2, verses 18 through 19, read the following. You're not to pass over, you are to pass over through Ar, the coast of Moab, this day. And when you come over nigh against the children of Ammon, distress them not, nor meddle with them. For I will not give you the children of Ammon, give the land of the children of Ammon any possession. For I have given it to the children of Lot for possession. The capital of Jordan today is called Ammon, after this man, Ammon. Perhaps we want to pronounce it that way. It's a little more accurate. Ammon. Ammon, the capital of Jordan, is it. This is today north. You split Jordan in two, east and north and south. Then split that in two, east and west. This is that northeast quarter of Jordan today. And the Lord's telling him, you can't have it. You know, the land of Israel that was on the west side of Jordan was north of this, okay? They just have to pass through Moab's territory, but they're not to try to conquer it, not to take it, and not having the ideal that they can get it later. He's given it to them, and it's as much their eternal possession as the land of Canaan was promised to be the eternal possession of the children of Israel. However, there's a problem. Some problems start cropping up because of that instability I talked about. And we see the first one here in Deuteronomy 23, verses 3 through 4. An Ammonite or Moabite shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord, even though their tenth generation shall not enter the congregation of the Lord forever. Because they met you not with bread and with water this in the way. And you came forth out of Egypt, because they hired against you Balaam the son of Beor, a Pethor of Mesopotamia, to curse you. Okay, they're getting singled out here. But why? Because of their bad beginning? No, because of their bad actions later. They did two things wrong. I mean, first of all, when the children of Israel came out there and remember God that feed them with manna and stuff, they should have been, when they heard of this, they came out of Egypt, they should have been down there helping them. Should have been giving them humanitarian aid, food and water. And later when they went through there, they ended up having to go way around these guys to go up to Bashan. go fight, go fight against Og of Bashan and those people up there because the Moabites didn't want to go into their land. And they said, well, we'll pay you for the food and water. We just, we'll just stay on the road. And we won't, we're not going to take anything from you. So, but so basically they're refusing to sell them food and water in the way there at that point. But also notice they hired Balaam, the son to curse them. That's the guy with the talking donkey. If you're not, if you perhaps know him that way, to curse them. Of course, he couldn't. He couldn't. But they wanted him cursed. So they tried, and ultimately they got them in trouble with God. They got them in trouble with God. Ultimately he advised them, and they got and Moabite women got them in trouble in Baal Peor, and got a bunch of the men killed. God himself had them killed because they were out worshiping idols and fornicating. So, because of these things, they can't enter the congregation of the Lord for the 10th generation, and that goes on forever. So once they come in, 10 generations have to go by before they enter the congregation of the Lord. And there's another case where this occurs, and we'll show it in another lesson perhaps someday. And we'll show this is literal. There's another group who can't go in, and you can literally count 10 generations so they could. So 10 generations does not code for forever. The commandments forever. The 10 generations is a literal count. So they can't go into the court of the Israelites, perhaps more to the point. Or they can't, or maybe they can't even go into the congregation. They can't even go in at all. They can't go out to the court of the Gentiles, perhaps, to then. Because that instability in their life has to be dealt with. That's causing them to behave this way. Now, the instability isn't going away anytime soon. We're going to see them. They're part of a group in Psalms 83, verses 1 through 8. We're going to see here. That a future war that perhaps possibly is forming right now between God, the whole Hamas Gaza thing. Look at this, and this is why it's so important to know the players when you're reading the Word of God. We'll just see, you'll see what I mean here in a minute. Keep you not silent, O God. Hold not your peace and be not still, O God. For lo, your enemies make a tumult, and they that hate you have lifted up the head. And taking crafty counsel against your people, consulted against your hidden ones. And they said, come, let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For if consulted together with one consent, they're confederate against you. The tabernacles of Edom and the Ishmaelites and of Moab and the Hagarenes and Gabal and Ammon and Amalek and the Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre. Ashur is also joined with them. They have helped the children of Lot, Selah. Okay, now if you're not up to date, first of all, now let's talk about the coalition first. If you're not up to date, the coalition is currently including who's actively either helping like helping the children of Lot here, helping or actively, launching rockets and whatever on Israel, includes Yemen, Iraq. I'm sorry. Iran's behind it, but Iraq, there's forces from Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Gaza Strip, of course, where this all started. Well, now let's look at our players down here in this future war. Who do we have? We have Amalek, who's just south of the promised land, and perhaps even some of their descendants, perhaps down in Yemen. The Philistines, that's the people of Gaza. Tyre, that's the people up there in Lebanon. Ashur, if you don't know where Ashur is, Ashur is also Assyria. It was primarily the north well, you say the northeast half of modern Syria, the the northwest half or the north half of modern Iraq. Okay, and they're both in on it. Tyre is Lebanon, of course. So, but look, who's not in on it currently? The Ishmaelites, the descendants of Ishmael, the Arabs, the Hagarenes, other Arabs related to them, perhaps the Bedouin, Hagar, winding after her, because it was like people do when a woman has multiple men, has children by them, and they don't even know who the father is. They tend to identify with the mother. Hagar meant built. Remember, she's maybe 40 years old, around 40 years old when the whole Ishmael's cast out thing. She's became a free woman. It doesn't appear she married, or she did. It appears she had multiple children with multiple men who also became, different ethnic groups, perhaps out there as well. Well, Saudi Arabia, Jabal, we're talking about basically Saudi Arabia in that area. And the Prince of Saud is still thinking about entering into a peace treaty with Israel. So that player's not entered yet for this. But notice who else hasn't. Edom, southern Jordan, Ammon, and Moab, these children of Lot. The country of Jordan has stayed firm with its treaty with Israel. So this war, now if these groups, if Arabia and some of the satellite countries around it, perhaps the United Arab, some of the signers of the Abraham Accord, Qatar, United Arab Immigrants, etc., join in, and Jordan joins in, they would have all the players. But we shall have to see if this plays out or not. But notice what they've done that really fits. They're making a tumult, a lot of noise. They're claiming to be the victim and blah blah blah. They hate the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They go around yelling Allah Akbar. Now, Allah can be confusing because it is the word used in the New Testament for God. But by Allah, they mean the God of Ishmael. They'll tell you Ishmael and Abraham. And we talked about how they got these ideals from Egypt, the crescent, etc. All tied in this idol worship that from different places. And they hate the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, claim he's not even God. That the God, the promise went through Ishmael, not Isaac, and then his descendant Jacob. Okay, they've lifted up their head against him. They've taken crafty counsel against their people. Israel has a pretty good intelligence system, and they didn't see it. They didn't see this. And you like Hamas or not, they were pretty clever. I mean, the paratroopers going over the wall and sending in drones to take out those towers, and they picked the right time. They waited to Israel, and people were refusing to show up for work, as I mentioned. And there weren't no one watching the eyes and carrying guns to defend if they did break through. And Israel's paid a terrible price for this. And notice they're not just consulting against your hidden ones. The hidden ones, people that God's hidden. There's people there's people. Notice they're God's hidden ones. There's people who are descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, even to their father's lines, who have no clue. It's even hidden from them. And they'll say, "Well, how could they be? How could that be?" And they not know. That's not hard at all. Some people have uncovered. Some people have discovered that this. They discovered this in later days. But a guy moves to a guy moves from one country to another country. He's got the manners and everything of another country. He moves there, changes his name, gets a name, picks a name that's real common, like Smith, say, Brown, Jones in the U.S. Doesn't tell his wife, marries someone, doesn't never tell her that he's the son of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Hides, maybe starts going to a Catholic church, whatever, the whole business. In every way, no cultural signs, nothing. And then he dies eventually. He's hadn't told his wife, his children, his grandchildren don't know. Maybe his great-grandchildren. They don't know. They don't got no one to tell. But God knows. And see, this is a hidden seed. If every known Jew on earth got wiped off, God would still have these hidden ones. And Hamas is in the Hezbollah and Hamas guys have both said, almost quoted this passage word for word out of it. That they want to cut off Israel from. They've literally said, let's cut them off from being a nation. That the name of Israel be no more remembered. At least translates that way in English. Okay, I'm just going with the translation is accurate. Okay, they've literally said this. And in doing so, they know there's these people out, and Hamas and Hezbollah, the leader of Hezbollah, both made no unmistakably said they want to just not destroy all the people in Israel. They want to kill every single Jew, every single descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, probably through their mother's line or their father's line, off the face of the earth, so be, and just blot it out from off the earth completely. And that's what they've done. And those are consulted with one consent, and this these people fight each other all the time, but they've confederated for this. And notice they're really fighting, and they're fighting against God at the end of the day. Make no mistake. They may go in there and kill Israelis, and Israelis may kill people from Hamas and whatever. But at the end of the day, it's a war between the haters of God and God himself. And people like Mark Zuckerman who run Facebook and are siding with these people often. I did a lesson on Noah's Ark, and didn't even mention any of this stuff, and I got fact checks by people. Got a little translation of what they said, and basically their complaint was, I was pro-Israel and not pro-Hamas. Mark Zuckerman is one of the people that want to kill the guy who owns Facebook. But like Lot, he's worried about losing his prosperity. They should be worried about losing his life. Because these people he doesn't want to upset, want to exterminate him, in their view. Now in Isaiah 11:12 through 14, we read the following. He shall sign up for the ensigns of the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, and gather them together to disperse to the Judah from the four corners of the earth. The envy also of Ephraim shall depart, and the adversaries of Judah shall be cut off. Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not vex Ephraim. They shall fly upon the shoulders of the Philistines towards the west. They shall spoil them of the east together. They shall lay their hands upon Moab, and the children of Ammon shall obey them. Okay, so how's that instability going to be ever resolved? So it's being addressed here. Notice when this occurs, when Messiah is reigning. That's an ensign for the nations. They're dispersed from the four corners of the earth. That final gathering we talked about before. That gathering where a lot of people in Judah, in the country of Israel today are killed. But the rest of those Jews, even those hidden ones we talked about a moment ago, are gathered. Remember, they're gathered in the wilderness first. We talked about this in the regathering of Israel. And every rebel among them who will not accept the reign of Messiah is going to be destroyed. But after that, remember, they're pushed east to the west, and they're going to take over. They're going to take possession. They're going to take over the entire promised land. Now, does that mean they're going to now take over the land of Edom that God had said was the eternal possession of the children of Lot? We'll see in a moment. But notice the people of Edom and Moab. They're going to lay their hands on them, and those are going to obey them. Okay, they're going to bring them in subjection. And as we looked at when we talked about the restoration of Israel, they're no longer going to be counted as people of Edom and Moab and the children. They're going to be totally assimilated into Israel and given a piece of land, a part of the inheritance there as well. And that instability will come to an end, because now they are no longer got those attitudes, those problems, that outlook. They've turned away from all that. And like Ruth, their God, the God of Israel, has become their God. And the people of Israel have become their people. And that's how that's going to be resolved. But what about that land? Is that land now going to become part of Israel? Does that mean God said they couldn't have it back with Moses? What's going to happen to that land? Let's find out here in Zephaniah 2, verses 8 through 10. I have heard the reproach of Moab in the revilings of the children of Israel, whereby they reproach my children and magnify themselves against the border. Wherefore, as I live, says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, surely Moab shall be as Sodom, and the children of Ammon as Gomorrah, even the breeding of nettles and salt pits in perpetual desolation. The residue of my people shall spoil them, and the remnant of my people shall dispossess them. This they shall have for their pride, because they reproached and magnified themselves against the people of the Lord of hosts. Okay, now so there's a future event here, because this hadn't happened yet. Jordan's not all like that yet. But this event he's addressing happened when the Babylonians came. They reproached the people of Israel. They mocked them as they were being hauled off. They didn't try to help them. They didn't try to hide them. They mocked them. And the Jordanians before Jordan, the Hashmonites got control of Jordan, and the majority of them identify themselves as Palestinians, even though they're not really got no Palestinian ancestry, no descendants from the Philistines, but they're definitely on the side of the Palestinians for the most part. Out in Jordan, there's people out there throwing candy for masked men who killed Jews, kind of like Halloween, throwing candy with mask, right? When candy and mask, right? Same thing, a celebration of death here, just like Halloween, a celebration of death. And this is all reproaching, and yelling Allah Akbar, and they reproach the people of the Lord, that means they're reproaching the Lord. They know the people; these are the people the chosen people, who were chosen. They don't know what they're chosen for, but they know the Jewish people call themselves the chosen people. Who often don't ask the obvious question: chosen to do what? Which I covered it in a lesson called "The Chosen People." Well, it's their pride. There's that word pride again. And once again, and Israel was defenseless because of this, because of the pride movement in Israel. Part of that was, I mentioned that the people that show up reserves and they're willing when they run down there and rescue them. But 20 years ago, you watch 20 years ago, I started watching, started seeing videos. And sometimes I look at the Wailing Wall, whatever. People in restaurants everywhere, Israelis were carrying guns like AK-47s, okay? And you just saw them everywhere. Well, the LGBTQ people, plus people, the judges started working with the judges and made basically gun laws to restrict guns. And so the families down there, by and large, didn't have guns. They have handguns to defend themselves. And if they did have a handgun, I think you can get one with a permit. I think you can carry like 20 bullets or something. It was no match for these people. They were, if they had their own AK-47s, their families would have had a chance. But they didn't. But what's going to happen to Moab in them? Remember, the people are going to be absorbed into Israel, no longer identify them. They're no longer be called Edomites, Moabites, and Ammonites. Moab, that northern half of Jordan today, is going to become like Sodom and Gomorrah. The land of the children of Lot is not going to be given in possession to the people of Israel. It's going to become like the land of Sodom and Gomorrah, part of that big nature preserve I talked about that covers Jordan and southern Iraq, modern southern Iraq, from all this destruction God's going to bring on those places. And I talked about that when I talked about the restoration of Israel, and why. And why there has to be a new heaven, new earth, because Messiah brings everything under subjection to him, but the earth is still scar sin. It's still sin by scar, and that's why that's scarring. So, okay, so That's what's going to happen to the land. God's not going back on his word. He's not giving the land to Israel. There's people out there who are like that. Well, God's going to give him Jordan anyways. No, he's not. He's not going back on his word. It's just going to be destroyed. And the people, the survivors, those who will be for God are going to be assimilated into Israel and no longer counted as members of Moab and Jordan. And that will end the stability. It'll end it that came from that really was implanted in them from conception. That's all. So that's all I have for this week. Until next week, shalom.